She's here in town?
No, she doesn't.
Yeah.
Hmm?
Yeah. Oh. Can't remember.
A few years ago, right?
Yeah. Quiero dejarlo que la 2 o'clock.
Real close.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Francina Martinez. Dinah Minus.
Here?
Alan Franken.
Here.
Robert Riddick.
Here.
And Mr. Michael Montoya.
Present. Pledge of allegiance, Ms. Diana, you can lead us.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item on the agenda of June 13th is approval of the agenda.
I make the motion to approve the agenda.
First, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, saying none. We move forward. Approval of minutes of May 16th, 2022.
And I'll make a motion to approve those minutes.
Thank you, sir. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, seeing none, motion passes. Public input. Do we have any public input?
No, sir, there's no public input.
No public input. Okay. So we move on to the discussion items. Resolution number 22-28, increase revenues and expenditures to fund number 214 Street Co-op project and the funds of 220 capital projects.
Yes, sir, this agenda is to increase both revenue and expense with Fund 214 street projects. This was a co-op funded project. We did receive the waiver as well, so that's why we're going for the full $86,757, and that's in Fund 214. And we also have in Fund 220 capital projects. This is for a tree tree removal grant that we received, and so we're going to increase revenue and expenditures in Fund 220 as well.
And what street road project was that one?
Let me get there. Rehabilitation to Douglas Avenue and National Avenue.
And the tree removal is just, what is that one?
This was a state-funded grant, and this is for tree removal along the Riverwalk, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
It was approved, or we received it quite some time back. We did not, my apologies. We did not have all the paperwork in order, so at the last minute we decided to get this squeezed in because we do have a contractor on hand that's going to get this project taken care of us fairly quickly.
All righty, thank you. Any questions?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Bob?
The city owns the Riverwalk property, right?
Yes.
So that's all, including the river, I guess, sort of, kind of the river?
Well,
There's a repairing corridor, I understand, along every river in New Mexico.
at this very present time, we're trying to obtain a surveyor to survey the whole park
Good.
from end to end, because there are some fence lines out there that we're not quite sure of what they've
Right.
got there, and this and the other. And this Gallinas River project, we have 21 benches sitting out here at the rec center, and we have a lot of things that are going to go in place, but we don't want to put anything in place yet till we definitely know from the survey where the
Excellent
city
idea.
land is at.
Okay, excellent idea.
Thank you.
I wondered about that. And my second question is on process. Is it normal for the city to do a resolution for a budget adjustment request?
Yes, sir.
And is that by policy from the city? I'm
Yes.
more familiar with a budget adjustment request being done by the finance department, and then it being brought to the governing body for them just to approve it.
That's exactly what we do.
Okay. But you're doing a resolution first to do a bar, and then you're going to do, and when that bar is done, is it automatically then signed? It doesn't have to come back to the governing body?
No, sir.
Okay, all right, that makes sense.
I'll let the record show that Ms. Francine is here, present at 2:05. Thank you. Any other questions? You're welcome.
Hi, sorry about my lateness.
If there's no further questions, with that, I'll ask for an approval of Resolution 22-28.
So moved?
And I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Alan Franken,
Aye.
Dinah Minus,
Yes.
Michael Montoya,
Yes.
Francina Martinez, Robert Ritter.
Yes.
And the motion passed. We'll move on to item number, letter B, and that is May Finance Report.
Okay, for May finance report, we have general fund, and we're showing revenues at 99%, with expenditures at 65%, with a surplus to date of $1.145 million. We have our enterprise, revenues at 94%, and expenditures at 75%, with a surplus of $2.173 million. Our recreation department, we're at 50% in revenues and 54% in expenditures, with a surplus of $89,000. And one thing I would like to point out is that there is a transfer from the general fund into the rec center, so that shows the majority of the revenue. On our lodger's tax for May 31st, 2022, revenues at $477,000, 102%, so we exceeded what we budgeted. And our expenditures at 57%, the surplus of $191,000. And of course, you got your April and March for comparison. That else kind of any questions?
Any questions? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman? Oh, I'm sorry. As we're very close to the end of the year, as we see these surpluses, and we start with our new budget year, how will we adjust budgets to reflect these surpluses rather than just spend them? I think that seems to be the tendency. And I just remind everybody, I think last year we used up the surpluses, and then we found out we had that big insurance premium that we had not paid. So how does the city work with these big surpluses?
Well, basically, they roll into fund balance, and so if departments know now, so for instance, if they have a surplus, they can say, you know, with this surplus leftover monies that we have from this year, can we add it to our budget for next year, which will eliminate us having to do a bar, because that's basically what we do.
Right.
It rolls into fund balance. We know that they have that surplus in there, so come next year, whether it's August, September, whenever it is during the year, and they decide that they need more budget, we'll end up doing a bar. So, I mean, if we get ahead of the ball game, we can make those adjustments now before we put in our final budget, and therefore we wouldn't have to do the extra paperwork or budget adjustments in the next year.
just one more follow-up on that. Does the legislature look at these fund balances when they look at capital requests and financial requests and say, oh, wait, if you don't need any money, you guys got a $3 million budget surplus? Well, no, I worry about that. We should spend the money. I mean, I think there's plenty of spending that we could do in this town. We need it, and not to waste money, but I just hate to see surpluses sitting there when you go looking for help.
Yeah, no, definitely. And believe me, sir, the council did look into that this year, and they did use some of those surpluses. And so, for me, I would like to have a cushion. You know what I mean?
Yeah, certainly.
We don't want to just go and spend everything down.
No.
Definitely.
I'd like to add to that, we are required to have 3% balance, right? On
Yeah.
top of, otherwise, we can't clear it out. But,
That's just about $500,000, 3%?
Right now, we're showing
$14 million budget, or?
1.4 million.
Oh, is it?
I don't
Okay.
have to.
Okay.
that's about 1.4.
Okay.
But the other thing is, we looked at that about 4 months ago, and that's how come all these streets are being improved now. Because we said, we have this much money, let's go ahead and spend it. So now is the time, now we have the good weather, so now let's do these projects. And as I speak, just Friday, they started doing Peggy Lane, which is one of the worst streets, and then they've already done the milling part of it on Calle Dulce, and today they're working on 2 other streets here on Pecos and Railroad Street, and we have other streets over by Alamo Street, some streets there in that area. That also, we try, each councilman tried getting a couple of streets that we could do, 2, 3 streets that were the worst in our wards. It didn't have nothing to do with who lived there or anything like that. So, but yeah, we're trying to utilize as much money as we can. We also putting in improvements to our city parks. That water line, inclement water line project was one of those projects. So there's regardless of whether our citizens or constituents don't see it, we are moving the city forward, and we have done more projects in the last 2 years than have been done in a long time. And we'll continue to do so. But of course, we do have to stay within budget and stay with a cushion at the end of the year. And if you have that little extra, well, guess what? We just roll it over and keep going, because sometimes, like you said, there might be a surprise here or there that comes up, and we need to have that money to pay it. So.
Okay, thank you.
Your cutoff date is when, June 20th for spending for this year?
Actually, I put out a date of June 17th. So, but of course, things happen.
Yeah.
So whatever we need to do, we'll take care of. I just want to try and put a stop to the spending before. There's no need to try and spend it all out.
Yeah.
If we haven't done so in a year, I think let's hold on to it.
Yeah, I agree.
Right, so that you can get your bills paid,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Because what I've seen.
Before the fiscal year ends?
Right. And what I've seen in the past is departments say, oh, well, I've still got $10,000 in supplies. I'm going to go buy this, and that. Whenever it's unnecessary, you got another budget coming next year, you know what I mean? So it's unnecessary to go and overspend at year end just because you have the extra budget.
May I ask some questions on budget? Where are you on submitting your budget for the year?
I submitted the preliminary budget May 30th and 31st, and I've requested any changes to director's budgets be submitted to me by the 17th so that we can get that finalized and submitted.
were there finally salary schedules developed? I know that last year I talked about it a little bit, and Mr. Paquette at the time said, we're working on salary schedules. That way when you start an employee at a base pay.
We did get that salary comp study done. We paid, I think it's the Mercer Group, $7,500 to have it done. However, it is not fully and completely in place.
Because when you do see the surplus, you just want to make sure that all the raises, whatever increase, let's say if you're giving a 3% increase, all that is just is done at the very beginning of the fiscal year, correct?
Right.
Because when you start giving additional raises during the year, that's what raises Christian, I'm sure, for people. Okay. And I don't know if that was done this year, but it just doesn't look right. And right now, well, there's a surplus. So it's not just certain individuals that should get a pay raise. Everybody should, right?
Right. And I did incorporate within the budget a 75-cent increase per AFSCME across the board.
It'd be nice to see those salary schedules completed.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, Mr. Moore.
I have a couple questions on the general fund. I didn't quite understand your discussion on budgeting for next year. The world I come from, there were several ways that budgets could be handled. One way is that, and this is down to like department levels, if a department had a budget of $100,000 and they only spent $90,000 by the end of the fiscal year, they could carry over that $10,000, and that would be added to their new year budget, which would take it to $110,000. Okay. The other way was titled zero-based budgeting, and basically the idea of that was you use it or lose it. If you don't use it by the end of the fiscal year, you've lost that money from the old year, and if you just didn't get around to spending it, or somehow you couldn't spend it in timely fashion, it had to be added into the new year budget. Which one of those is the city operating on?
The zero budget. But
Okay.
we do give, well, this year, I sat with every director and discussed what their needs were. So if they had a $100,000 budget, like you said, but this year they know that for a fact, they're going to need some additional money for A, B, and C. We can talk about that, negotiate
Okay.
how that's going to happen, because it doesn't happen every year where they need an increase of that case. And for instance, city clerks, on election years, we have to give them additional funding because they have to go out and hire folks to come in. So it kind of works both ways, but for the most part, it is a use it or lose it. And like I mentioned earlier, I hate for somebody just because they had it there and didn't use it to just go and spend it all off at the end of the year. If you haven't used it through the year, you get a new fresh budget next year, let's start over.
And I'm aware of that frivolous spending at the year end, if you have budget, is something that needs to be managed, and it's a good thing to manage that. My next series of questions are, and please, I don't mean to be super negative, but it seems like these budgets, we missed a lot. I mean, right now we're at 100% revenue on the general fund, and we got one more month to go, right, for revenue collection. And so revenue is going to be much higher than what our budget indicated it would be. And is there a reason for that? And then the reverse is true on the spending side. It looks like spending is way, way below what the budget was estimated to be. I wondered why the budget was missed so much. I mean, we're at 65% on the spending side.
So So whenever the pandemic came around, we budgeted 15% lower on revenues, and expenditures, just because we knew we were going to get our GRTs.
Okay.
So we knew that. So that was 2 years ago. Yesterday we left, not yesterday. Last year we left it the same. We did not increase it, we did not decrease it, we just left it the same. So it was still a reduction of 15% from 2 years ago. And so we left it at that. We have been very fortunate in the fact that our GRTs have come in
Yeah.
higher than anticipated. And so that's not a bad thing. On the expenditure side, we've done a lot of bars within the year to increase for different grants and different projects that have come on. And so that's the reason why the expenditure budget has increased. The actual activity hasn't taken place, but the money remains, the budget.
So are you saying that grants go into the general fund? Or are they managed separately as a separate project fund?
Those are managed separately.
Okay, all right,
But-
that's what I thought.
But
So when, just curiosity, when did you know that, for example, your revenue side of the budget this year was going to be exceeded? And if that was a while ago, do you ever go through a mid-year budget adjust, either up or down based on the circumstances, or is that more of an informal process where somebody, the city manager, starts tightening up the purse strings?
we do, and we did. We did that mid-year budget adjustment of almost on the expense side, not on the revenue side, of almost 3 million, just because, as Councilman Montoya was stating,
Yeah,
to
okay.
do all of these projects that council has chosen to do. We did not adjust, or have not adjusted, and of course it's too late now, adjusted the revenues per the GRTs that have come in.
Yeah.
Have we, or should we have? Sure.
I
Just-
think
just
you-
to make
yeah,
a better
I would have
reflection.
said you should have.
Yeah.
Once you know something is pretty much going to happen, then, because I know it's a delicate balancing act to balance your budget, but I think that one of the things that you don't want to do is sit on huge surpluses and at the same time have the city have needs that haven't been met. And it sounds like the council has been kind of trying to stay on top of that.
Yeah, what happened is, I think the prior finance director and our prior city manager, during the pandemic, we thought everything was going to go down.
Yeah.
And even our lodger's tax kind of went skyrocketed. And, we didn't anticipate that. But I think a lot of factors had to do with, the motels still being full and gas prices and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So it really, really helped us out. But when we saw and we realized that we had extra savings, we said, well, let's go ahead and start spending this money.
Yeah.
So,
Excellent idea, because I personally believe one of the worst things you can do is sit on large surpluses, whether they're surprised or you saw them coming months by month, or when the city has so many needs, and they should
and
start deploying that money.
I have a question for you. Well, so like now that we're changing the city charter and we're no longer going to have an election in the year 2024. We bumped it up to November of 2025. So did you make adjustments to those 20 or 30,000 that we spent on those elections?
Within the city clerk's office? Yes, sir.
Yeah, on their budget. Okay, so this year we'll see their budget decreased
Right.
by that much? Okay. And on meeting with the directors and so forth, did you guys increase streets department budget? Do you remember like how much? 20, 30, 100?
Oh, quite a bit.
Yeah. Because I know Mayor and Council was looking at, being able to do more streets,
Right.
more improvements, more projects.
This hard copy doesn't show it exactly, but yeah, we definitely did.
Okay.
I can look it up. that's
So,
just-
Counselor, does the city have a priority list
Yes.
of stuff they want to do? And do you know that off the top of your head? For example, and I'm talking broad stuff, like streets are our top priority.
Well, there is what you call a comprehensive plan
Yes,
that the
I've heard of
community
that, yeah.
works on. And that's a book that thick, and it covers all areas of the community.
Well, I've looked through that and I've been totally confused. I was looking for some very general,
Oh, no, that's not,
Information.
that's pretty broad, and it covers the whole city.
yeah, I know,
And that's a 5-year plan.
yes.
But, yeah, we set out a listing, and our city manager printed it out, what priorities we wanted, and long-term and short-term goals.
But for example, is that in the format that, I'm not looking for specific projects,
Yeah,
because that's what I kind of saw in the comprehensive plan, was it was
yeah,
pretty,
and on your ICIP plan,
yes,
you'll also see
Yes.
by projects and amounts, and that's what we ask, set up our priorities under when we go ask funding for the legislature every year.
okay.
That's what we do, is we get we have probably, how many projects on the ICIP? Maybe
20?
50, 100,
Oh, 100?
maybe, I'm gonna say around 50, I would say.
Okay, yeah,
But, some of them have gotten partial funded, so they're still on there. Some of them have been completed, that need to be deleted out. And, but we do get our priorities from that list.
good.
Plus, if anything comes up, mayor and council talk about it, and they decide how we're gonna do this. Just the same thing that with that funding that we got this last year, what was left over after giving the police and the employees and everybody their stuff, then what was left, we went and decided each ward was gonna keep $345,000, and each councilman, woman would be doing whatever they wanted with it. And all of us chose streets and sidewalks. So,
For the ARP funds,
yeah,
remember we had that
Yeah.
list and
Yes.
we presented?
Yes.
Where are we at on that list? Is that the funding you're talking about?
yes, a lot of those have been completed, and half of those are being worked on. We have playground equipment in some parks, we have lighting on some, and Independence is getting sidewalks, and of course that project is a joint effort between Councilman Romero and West Las Vegas. They're sharing that cost, so on and on.
So none of that revenue has nothing to do, that funding that we receive from ARP has nothing to do with the funding, the revenue that Mr. Wooders is talking about?
No.
No, it
No.
has nothing to do with it. That's a
Those
fund
are-
all in itself, that was spent separately.
Yeah, and we're supposed to get another chunk this year?
1.5 now in July?
Yeah, 1.5 in July, and we haven't discussed where that's going
New
to go.
priorities, huh?
Yeah.
And I have one more question on the general fund report here. The surplus to date at the bottom, 1.14 million, is that cumulative
Yes.
from all times prior,
No, that's just this year.
just for this year?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And how much did we start this year with?
Oh, I couldn't tell you off the top of my head, sir.
A lot, a little?
It was within that range.
Yes.
So when we end this year, if we end up with that surplus from this year, we would take 2.2 million into the new year as surplus. Did I hear that right?
That sounds about right, yeah.
And our minimum requirement is 8% of the budget. Okay?
Well, I would say it all depends what you budget next year, right? It all depends what you budget next year, because this just rolls into whatever you budget for next year.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So the surplus depends on how much you budget for next year, I would say. Because
Okay.
if you increase your departments by $1 million, yeah, of course you're gonna even out.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That it would be based on next year's budget, not the current budget. Okay.
And our gross receipt tax, is that projected to go down this year or no?
Oh, actually, what's that gentleman's name, David?
David
We're in contact with the
Monty.
Monty, the tax and rev, and they've given us pretty good idea that we should be staying either equal or higher. So we're looking good. I mean, I'm budgeting hopefully well on our GRTs based off of what tax and rev has told us about.
No.
And so, I mean, whether it comes in or doesn't, it's really only budget, but I'm hoping for higher.
Okay, and what about this, how's the state gonna reimburse us or give us our share of the marijuana business in that?
They already are, it's going through the county though, right?
Yes.
So we get funded through the county. The state gives it to the county and then it's a flow through to us.
So
Have you
how does
seen
that?
reimbursements for that? Not yet?
No. So how are we gonna get that money? Depends on how many businesses there are in town or what the sales are or it's just a flat rate or?
I honestly don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know. I'll have to research that.
So what's the plan to establish a new line on the revenues called something about marijuana or whatever?
You
Okay.
can't allocate any of that funding to go to your across the street rec center,
Rec center.
since that one is not self-sustainable, right? I mean, you constantly have to feed that one.
Right.
You know what I mean? It likes to eat at least 4 times a year. How many transfers do you do per year?
I do a monthly.
Ay, Dios. Okay. See?
You'll have to.
12 months.
You'll have to convince 3 others.
Well, you know, because you're having to do paperwork for all that, right? You're having to look at it every month and saying, okay, what's the shortfall in this month? You know what I mean? So it's almost like you're having to budget for it anyway.
Well, we budgeted $420,000 and we just divided by 12 and it's a monthly transfer done.
Why don't you do a quarterly transfer?
We could.
Save you time and effort.
Yeah, we could.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying, more paperwork.
I could do one transfer.
Right.
And if you had the surplus,
But if
why don't you do that?
But if
You know, Mr. Withers, I'm working off of other people's.
I
so
know,
This
I
has
know.
been built, you know, that it takes a little bit of time to get folks to be able to say, okay, that'll work. You know?
And
One
I
transfer
fully-
for me would be great.
I fully understand that, and
Yeah.
I don't want to push too hard.
Yeah,
And
no.
I
No,
apologize
you're
if
fine.
I
You
do,
know,
but I'm
be
interested in
creative.
giving ideas out there.
Absolutely.
Throwing-
These are
Me, I'm saying-
suggestions,
Yeah,
yeah.
This is a
suggestions,
Yeah,
perfect
ideas, whatever,
opportunity
Yeah,
be a perfect opportunity to have the marijuana sales just, you know,
yeah.
Mhm.
trickle into
Yeah.
that fund.
Yeah.
And that would save you without having to budget appropriately with it. you know.
Yeah.
Of course,
Oh,
it's
yeah,
us just
yeah.
looking in and out, like you said,
Right.
this takes time. Is this, you know,
So
going to be your way of doing things, you know?
These are suggestions that we're asked.
Yeah, that way, you know, the funding's
Council,
coming
why
in.
are you
know.
making them do this like this? When we know
Something-
it could be different.
And it's, I don't think it's council asking us to do it this way, it's just the way it's been done.
Mhm.
And then this is what I walked into, and so this is kind of what we're doing, and is there better ways? I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Was it because maybe it did better other months?
Right,
Or was it because they weren't sure it could do better in
right.
a quarter?
Well, honestly, for these ones, it's one lump sum, and like I told Mr. Withers, it can be done once a year, because this is what they budgeted at the beginning of the year, this is what they decided, that the general fund would help out the rec center with. And so, like I said, it could be one transfer, one journal entry for the entire year.
Yeah.
It's just been done this way in the past, and there are things that we are trying to change to simplify stuff, but it does take time, and it takes everybody to be on board to do so.
So, Mr. Chavez, how will we know when the first payment comes in, or if it's 6 months, every month, or once a year?
We can definitely give you that information once
Yeah,
we see it.
okay.
We can advise you.
Yeah, that way we can prepare for it and see what percentage we're gonna be getting maybe I don't know, maybe the county's already got an opinion and we don't know nothing about it.
We haven't given you anything yet.
You know,
Yeah.
Keep them accountable, right?
And is there any kind of paperwork for it? I mean, that you
Not
have?
that we've had yet, but I do know that we have
know.
to, we have.
Everything
to-
comes with paperwork.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Seeing
we
is
have to submit
believing.
paperwork to the county, so we need to be in touch with the county, and honestly, right now, you guys are as much aware as I am that the county's kind of in a bad spot right now, so, whether the paperwork is going to them, we don't even know that yet. So it's gonna be a matter of us reaching out, and reaching out to who, I'm not sure, but I'll work on that and let you know.
City manager,
Curious.
maybe? Oh, it's Annabelle.
Is that the way, that's the way all gross receipts taxes get dispersed though, through the county first and then to the city?
No, we get ours directly.
Why did they change that one?
I don't know. That's, whenever we first heard about it, we heard that we have to go.
Because it's based on the location of the selling business, like all other gross receipts
Yes, sir.
tax do.
Yes, sir.
And Mr. Chairman, I have 3 other really quick questions.
Yes, sir.
And it's because I'm done, okay?
No.
On the revenue side, there's a thing called franchise tax. What is that? I'm not familiar with that.
All our local businesses.
Is that money from business licenses?
No, it's not actually. No, because our business licenses, those go into a different fund.
Okay.
Doesn't it show you right there? Licenses, fees, businesses, licenses, liquor license, building permits,
Correct.
development fees, local fines, court fines, library fines, traffic safety fines? Would that come from there, from that line item or no?
Don't we get franchise fees from P&M and, well, P&M primarily?
The NMR?
Yeah, I kind of
I
remember
thought it
lines
was
on my
franchise
bill. like
fees that they give us because they have the franchise.
Mhm.
And that's decided by the city.
Yeah. It just says franchise tax, huh?
These come in.
Yeah, I think that even comes with contractors and so forth that are coming to Las Vegas. They get a business license, they gotta pay a franchise fee.
Yeah, we got Quest,
I don't know if the
PNN,
internet pays one.
Comcast, Plateau.
All right, well, let me continue then. There's one further down that's called Interstate Telecom, comp tax.
That's
What's
the-
that, and what's intergovernmental?
That's the
I
new
I
one.
know those two are kind of small budgets, but,
Can you?
Those are fairly new budgets that we just started receiving back in September.
but where does the money come from for
It's
that?
coming from our gross receipts tax, so it comes along with our regular gross receipts.
Oh, so it's a breakout from the
Yes.
gross receipts tax?
Yes, it's a breakout.
Okay,
It's a
okay.
that's why it's a small line item. That's something recent that the state of New Mexico just started doing.
Okay, good enough. Just because I didn't know what some of those things were, and they're an income item, and so I was just curious. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions? No? On your account payables, on number 441, you had Gregor's logging. What is that all about? 39,700.
What pages is that on?
I just saw it on your accounts payables listing. I have it on my phone, but I don't have a copy here. But it's 441.
Gregor's logging, 39,000. Forest management treatment.
Probably like
Greg, if you're searching for it. maybe.
There goes Lovely.
That was April. I do know, let me go look.
He was under the,
Yeah. I've got it in there, it's not tracking down. Are you looking on it?
Yeah, I'm trying to hunt it down. It was for forest management treatment.
forest management, what?
Treatment, it
You
says.
see?
Yeah, that's what it
Forest
says.
management.
Treatment.
Treatment.
This was just.
This was
done.
just recently.
Is this,
I'm thinking this.
Oh, you know what?
Dozer operator, service truck, labor, blade operator. I bet you this has to do with the fire.
yes. There's several of those actually. Several contractors that we hired to go clear.
Where would we do that in the city?
Mhm.
You're not, you're gonna do it out at your water treatment plant.
At the water treatment plant? Oh, okay. That makes sense. Yeah.
So are you somehow keeping track of all these costs that you hope to get reimbursed for?
Yes, sir. Just so happens, we just had an input request. Where am I? Where are we, Monday? Sorry, I've been gone for over a week and I have been working from my phone and working from out of state. So, we just had an IPRA request in reference to this information as to what money the city plans on spending or what we have spent to date on this fire. And so our utilities department or utilities director, they've got a file, and maybe it would be a good idea for us to keep a file as well, but I just don't see the need to have the same file in 5 different places.
Yeah.
If utilities is covering those expenditures and they're the ones that putting the paperwork together, I think that they should manage that file. So I do know that we've had, I think, 5 contractors that are out there cutting fire lines and clearing for our watershed. I also know that our water department and our gas department have been purchasing tools, chainsaws, weed eaters, things of that nature to go out and do clearing around the water treatment plant. And so they'll also keep that paperwork as well. But there is quite a few. And of course, our fire and police, we have that via payroll, so we can keep track of that as well.
And there's probably a huge amount of overtime
Oh, yeah.
that can be, and maybe regular time can be expensed against fire and possibly reimbursed.
But that came out of the general fund though, not the department, not the director, the department.
No, that came out of water, 646.
Out of what?
Out of the water department.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, 646. So that's our utilities enterprise.
And the amount is 39,000?
39.7.
On that one.
So were quotes asked for? Are we treating them as a professional service?
I don't recall the paperwork altogether.
If you have 4 of them, that's either that same amount.
That might have been under emergencies.
Don't get me started on emergency.
I know.
No. Doesn't work. It doesn't work. Well, what do you have to justify? I guess you guys have the paperwork down pat, I would say on the web.
There's about 5 of them that I see just off the top of this list.
But that's one way to justify.
Yeah, I don't
That's
know,
one way
if you
to
get
find-
5 contractors, 5 dozers out there, how are you gonna get an RFP or quotes?
And the fire
planning.
was technically an
I'm going to
emergency.
go back to
Nobody was
quote planning.
expecting it, so.
How are you gonna do it in 30 days with the fire coming now?
Yeah.
I mean, you know what I mean? You can't do it.
It's like the clearing of the Gallinas River, if in all reality, you're supposed to get environmental clearances and
No,
permits and
I
everything.
know, like, you
Yeah,
guys are like
and
on treading water right there.
And now.
You saw the equipment in the
governor gave us
river?
permission just to go ahead and do
Yeah,
it.
once you have that, what is it, disaster? You
That's
do
the
it, yeah.
disaster declaration.
Yeah.
Take advantage of it.
That-
Heck, yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's looking so nice.
That cranks in a lot of.
Yeah,
It's
well,
making a
it's-
big
it's-
difference.
You don't have to worry about
It's
all the
badly needed.
procurement.
It
Yeah, been
is.
neglected for the last 50 or 60 years.
Oh my gosh, it's so nice to go down Wells and see
Well,
that, or
since it-
South Grand, and I look, to see the progress.
I know.
Well,
And they're working hard.
They still need to clear
Right.
the entrance itself, but they're filling in sandbags over there, and they're
Mm-hmm.
doing this, and they're doing that. It's, we got.
Those ones are the trenches and the shovels, those ones, I advocate for them for pay increase.
I know my biggest worry was there by Farmway to Feed, because that's where the river kind of like has no bank, it just like flattens out. And I was like, well, they have to be careful, because right there on 12th Street until then they'll just,
Well, that's what I did for.
I'll just
everything
go
with
out
the
there.
DOT.
Yeah.
I cleaned up bridges and did things, so debris one every year.
You were in the bridge crew.
Well, I oversaw the bridge crew and the couples crew.
Right.
And the Mercedes crew.
Good job to them for doing that.
Any other questions on the budget, sir? Anybody? Francine?
No, but are we talking expenditures yet?
We can,
I have questions on expenditures.
go ahead.
The way I did it was I do it by page. And my first, this is what's the document title of it? It's your,
We only have like 4 questions to ask, sir. I'm
okay,
just
then
kidding.
they're
I'm
going
just
to be
kidding.
real long.
I'm
They're
just
going to be
kidding.
really long.
I'm
but-
just teasing you.
Well, and I humbly
No.
apologize
No,
since I'm
no.
the newbie guy here.
That's
There's
okay.
probably stuff you guys
No.
know that I don't know, but my
No.
first one is page
It's all good.
page 4. It talks about the Red Iron Building. This is page 4 of the 63-page document. And it talks about the,
Needed for Red Iron Building.
Red Iron Building. What is that?
I'm wondering if this isn't the building that we purchased to put at the utilities department. We just recently purchased a new.
Equipment storage building?
Yeah, it's not just a little shed, it's a big building. And,
Okay, so first of all, there is a thing called the Red Iron Building, and it needs this kind of maintenance, $11,600 worth of maintenance.
Maintenance or construction?
This says maintenance of system.
Well, I think you're looking at 2 different things too. It says, that Red Iron Building, that cost of whatever it is was $361.45. Lower Bakery Utility Supply, that's $11,691, and that's supplies needed for service line and relocation.
Okay. All right.
So what building is that one?
Well, there's 2 different things. There's the Hacienda Home Centers where we purchase screws for the Red Iron Building, and then there's Baker's Utility where that's the $11,691.56, and that's for supplies needed for service line and relocation. I don't know exactly what service line or relocation it was, but maybe East Street, I don't know.
So,
I can't see.
I know that is a new building that they constructed in-house, but I know that I guess they bid it out, or they got an electrician to do the electrical part, right?
Right.
And where is it located?
On 12th Street, behind the utilities
Okay, all right.
department,
I kind of thought maybe.
along the
that was-
Gainas River.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
And I think it fits like 4 big pieces of equipment, and they're not done with it. You know,
Okay, and that makes sense, because what I see, that looks like that's what they're doing. My next question is page 5, and it's Taylor Wells, and it looks like there was some maintenance done on Taylor Wells.
What do we have?
Page 5, it's
Yes, sir.
$9,756. And my question is, and it was Hayes Plumbing, and so Taylor Wells is up and running, and we're maintaining it and everything, even though we're not using it as a city for water at this point. My understanding is that it's pretty brackish water in quite a few of the wells there.
May I have the excuse for one moment?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
I think that, I think 2 of the 3 wells are the ones operating, that are operational right now.
And are they pumping water out of there up to the treatment plant?
You know what, I'm not sure, but even if they are, those are just for blending purposes.
Yeah, and that's what I thought they were doing, was they were
Yeah.
blending it with other stuff to get it.
Yeah, and I imagine that they're only
Mean
pumping
criteria.
a percentage
Okay.
if they are, yeah.
There's one on the bottom there too. Can you see that one, Eleanor?
Which one?
It says, is that replacement, is that the one Mr. Witters is talking about, for 42,000?
No, mine's at the top of that page.
Okay.
The one for 9,000?
9,756?
Yeah, it's Hayes Plumbing.
Or there's that one for 40, is it 48?
That's 48,000 that you're seeing.
What is that for? It says replacement
Of chemical
of chemicals.
feed,
I think it's for the water treatment plant.
Yeah.
Mm.
yeah.
That's for the water
And
treatment.
it's fund code 646, which I think is the...
That's water.
Is that water?
That's water.
Yeah, okay, there you go.
So is there a contract that the amounts, I'm picking on procurement again,
I would assume so for those large
Good.
amounts.
that maybe you all went out to bid,
I
an
would
invitation
assume
to
so.
bid or RFP, and just
There'd be a
awarded it
contract.
to, yeah,
There
to
has to be
somebody.
a service contract because they're in our
Right.
system regularly. So
Yeah.
We have that same contractor that we've always utilized, and they're probably the only ones available.
there's very few for the water that do it, so we're pretty much using the same water people since
We
have
renewed their
limited-
contract about 2 months ago,
I
I think
think
so. Yeah. And they're on their 4th year. So after this year, we'll have to put it up for RFP again. Bob, you have any other questions?
Yes, I do.
Go ahead.
My next question is page 9, and it's a general question. There are what appear to be several inventories at the city. This seems to be some sort of a supply for parks, and there's another thing called inventory supplies as needed. There's an inventory for administrative materials. There's probably an inventory at the at the senior centers for food. How do we manage inventory here? How do we put inventory in, and how do we take inventory out and control it so it doesn't walk out the door to somebody's house?
So that's kind of a hard one. But inventory is all maintained in the back over here in our purchasing department. Our CPO and her staff, they do all the ordering. And we have a form, I don't have a form with me, but we have a form that must be filled out, signed by a director, in order to be picked up back here.
Well, excuse me a second. Again, I'm the newbie. CPO, is that certified procurement officer?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Who is that here?
Helen B.
Who?
Helen B.
All right, go ahead.
And so the form's filled out, the individual will show up to the purchasing department back here. They'll be issued the whatever supplies that they're requesting, and the purchasing department keeps that inventory form. The individual takes their supplies back to their department. Now from that point, it's anybody's guess as to whether it stays and is used in the office or walks out. We
And-
all know how those things can happen.
Does that inventory include admin supplies?
Yes, sir.
Paper, pencils, that
Yes.
kind of stuff?
Yes, sir. The inventory includes,
And what about food at the senior centers? there's no inventory control there, is there? I mean, food comes in for the senior centers, it's cooked and,
They do inventory monthly.
okay,
Yes, sir.
all right.
The purchasing would charge that department for whatever materials they took.
That's correct,
Yep.
yes, sir.
So it's bought for inventory when it comes in,
Right.
and then it's charged out to specific departments as it goes out of the inventory?
That's correct, yes, sir.
Oh, okay, good. All right,
But it goes through approval. I worked there 4 years, back 30 years ago.
in this inventory,
Yes, right back here.
maybe a few things have changed.
Probably
I've
not.
done back there, and it's pretty much the
It's
same.
same.
I
Okay.
mean, the numbers still stay the same, supplies might change, but stuff might have shrank, but other than that, the process is pretty much still the same.
Okay,
Yeah, you know, they're only allowed to have so much supplies, and quantity-wise, because of the room and because you don't want it to go to waste, plus you want it to work whenever you need it. But, yeah, they carry from shovels to rakes to, you know, picks to hand tools, different stuff that they, you know, stuff that normally you use every day, so you don't have to be doing the three-quote system, three-quote all the time.
okay.
But it's pretty accountable. And then they do have an inventory once a year on what's left over, just like
Once a
the
year?
budget.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. My next question is page 17, and it's a Bennett Law Group, and this happens to be a 10 grand payment. Page 17. Are we having legal issues that are going to cost the city?
We have tons of legal issues across the city. But we got one, rid of the biggest one, and that was a water lawsuit.
The Acequia
Yes.
water rights thing? Yes.
We
Yeah.
got rid of that.
That's absolutely correct. That was cool.
But we do have attorneys that we do hire outside the city of Las Vegas, other than our city attorney, for specific
Right.
items such as water. As a matter of fact, now we're in the process of obtaining somebody for this fire
Yeah.
that's an expert in collecting this kind of funds back. We have an attorney for personnel matters.
Does the city have a risk management program that gets down to trying to cut these legal costs by,
Well,
Doing
our
better.
HR, between our HR and our safety officer
Yeah.
is what we got. And as far as,
okay.
Mr. Montoya.
yes,
How many employees for the city?
how many employees do we have?
Last I checked, it was 252.
252.
We have less than we.
Is that employees or vacancies?
No, it's actual employees.
Yeah,
Got
okay.
about
Because I know we have like
20-something vacancies.
30-some vacancies also, so it's a high number.
And how many attorneys do you hire? So you have this one, and you have your city attorney.
Well, we have our city attorney, and then we have an attorney, like I said, for water,
Water.
one for fire, and then one for personnel matters. And I don't know, we have another one, but I don't know what one.
This one isn't our attorney, this is the attorney that was representing an individual. He had,
Uh-huh.
or he left, and
And what do you budget for that pay line? For your...
For attorneys?
Yes, on an annual basis.
I don't know, I can tell you.
On the
Because,
attorney, it's just the attorney and his fringe benefits and that.
Right,
That's
but-
in-house. That's an FTE.
But what do you do
But then you
out?
also have an external.
External.
You have your external.
Yeah, but all that, I think
Personnel.
all that comes out of the general fund, you know, and it's through our
Yeah.
piece.
Does it come out of the city attorney line on the general expenditure?
Probably
That's
not.
an addition,
I don't think
huh?
so.
Wow.
Well, I know, that's what I'm saying.
Wow, wow, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and that's,
so currently, to date, we have $135,000 budgeted, but we've only spent $36,000.
36? Good job.
It's not bad.
That's.
That's reasonable.
That's pretty
That
good.
is reasonable,
Yeah.
and that's being that you already have
An
An
attorney,
internal.
Yeah.
So you
Internal.
figure his salary, and I'm not,
Plus,
you know, nobody,
you
but,
wanna know.
right, yeah, I know. So you're still looking at probably $200,000 to budget for just attorney fees,
Attorney fees.
Are you saying that's from January to now?
you know, the fiscal year.
To yeah, the fiscal
12
year.
month, right? We're probably in the 11th month.
That doesn't cross
Seems
with
real low to me for,
This is just attorney's fees line item. This is not our city attorney.
Right. But like when you're paying out like this
External
expenditure,
people.
right?
Yeah.
Like you
Right.
said, you had one for the
Well,
personnel manager, you
that-
have one for the water, you have one for the city, for the firefighters or
Yeah.
so forth. That is just all in one pay line.
Right, and
Right.
so this one here, this line item for Bennett is called settlement agreements.
Uh-huh.
That's what that line item is called. And so this 10 grand says it's going to a lawyer, but it's this gentleman's lawyer.
So it's your settlement.
It's a settlement.
yeah. That's not all the
So it's not
attorney's
going to
fees.
sit in the attorney's fees.
Also, when you need
So,
like what you would
35,
do to
45.
every attorney.
I'm sorry?
You would need that line item for every attorney.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Yes, sir, go ahead.
Couple more, please,
Go
if I
ahead.
could. Page 25, there's a payment of $960 to Leo Maestas. And apparently it's for some sort of a conference or training or something. Page 25, Leo Maestas.
Right.
What is the policy? Why are you reimbursing an employee in this case instead of paying the bill directly?
He paid out of pocket.
Do you allow that?
He didn't go through the purchase order process?
See, that's what happens when you allow people to pay out of pocket and you reimburse, is that's one way to circumvent the procurement process. I'm not saying Leo did, so I'm not picking on Leo at this point.
How much is the
$960.
expense?
Yes,
$960?
yes.
960?
And he went on a training?
Yes, he paid for
So
the
does that
course.
mean he paid for the registration fee, the hotel,
He paid for the
meals,
course.
mileage?
It's online. He paid for the course.
He paid for it on, okay. So he didn't go anywhere. He just paid the
The
registration fee.
registration fee, like for the class?
Right, okay.
That was mandatory.
Yeah, well, good, good. Of course, you know, put the PO in, right? You put the PO in, say, hey, I want to go to this training, or I need to go to this training.
It was approved
Yeah.
by council.
And again, my preference, please, I'm not
No,
trying to give you a hard time or anything, but my preference would be not to let a circumvention of the procurement process take place by personal reimbursement to individuals,
Yes, sir.
including the city manager,
Yes, sir.
which is a little hard to not do at times, I think.
Was it after the fact or what happened?
Did he just say,
Did
No,
it just pop up all of a sudden and it had to be done?
I don't know the ins and outs of it. I know that it was a mandatory class that we had to take, and it was, I
because
don't know what the case
you
was.
all have a credit card, correct? Does your accounts payable have a credit card? That could have been, if he would have gone through the purchase order process, the accounts payable person, well, in our district anyways, she's in charge of that credit card, and when you go get your PO in your hand, then I need to pay for this. She releases the credit card, the person calls it in, gives it right back.
And that's how that's handled here as well. It's just,
Like you said.
And may I follow on that? How many credit cards does the city have?
3.
Why 3? Who has credit cards?
The city has credit cards. They're in a safe in our office.
Okay. And why 3? Why not?
I couldn't answer that question.
Okay.
If you have 3 employees going out of state, you'd wanna, if they need a credit card
It-
assigned to them, I would say that you'd have to dish it out to them.
And
or
honestly,
any training or anything like that. I don't know.
and it's not even in
Yeah,
that case
and
because
And it's, even if you have to go to Walmart and buy something for 99 cents or $1 or whatever, that they don't have that inventory, I mean, they might issue out that credit card to buy that.
And I understand all that, but again, in the
Right.
fraud area, from the world I come from, credit cards are problematic. And unless you have a tight grip on those credit cards, and a tight process associated with the credit cards.
and just as Dinah mentioned, our process for credit card is the same thing as any other procurement. We have to have a PO in place for the individual to sign out that credit card, and that credit card must be returned.
No, that's a
within
good
the same day.
procedure. That's a good procedure. Because they've gone through the procurement process.
Yes, it's returned in the same day.
Right.
Or used on the spot.
Yeah.
And bring it back.
We have
Because we
credit
signed it out
cards.
to you, and we're timing you
We have
before we
credit-
go home again, because we have to open the safe to put it away.
It'll be back at 5 or securities after.
Yes.
We have credit cards for fuel, for gas. for
Those
police
too?
cars,
Those are the Rex cards.
Yeah.
Those are Wix.
or city employees.
I'd like to ask about that. That's a whole nother area of problems.
Oh, I know.
Am I going down the problem list?
I guess you were.
And that has to be managed super carefully. Several organizations I've been with, when there is some people changes and there's some very strict procedures put in place about credit cards, we're going to get to the next one's called petty cash. And then the third one are gas cards for putting gas in city vehicles and everything else. Unless that's managed very carefully, there's a huge fraud. And my experience is that when somebody new comes in and they put in the new restrictions, for example, on the gas card usage, its usage goes way down. And one thing that they require is a log. And you have to submit, if you have a gas card, you have to submit a log. How do you do it at
The same thing, we just developed a form.
Yeah.
And implemented this log,
Yeah,
and we just ordered a car from federal funds, and that's mandatory to begin with. If you're
Yeah.
going to purchase a vehicle with federal funds, we have to crack the whip on that. And
Yeah.
it's hard because, you know, you have your maintenance people, they're the ones that are using all these vehicles, right? I mean, they're the ones that are in the car every single day, and...
well, and then the school district has buses.
Yeah, that one
And the
too.
buses suck
But
down
we're
the
saying
diesel.
cars too. So we're doing a log.
So I'm just asking about that, and...
The
and if I-
starting, the date, you traveled so many miles per day,
Yeah.
this is how much, okay, the next day you're gonna start a new one.
And you
our
log
accounts
in your
payable is gonna
mileage
take care
and
of
stuff
it.
like that. Do you do that?
Yes, sir.
And is somebody checking that?
They're maintained in the vehicles. The staff, like you were talking about, the utility staff or whatever, they're not, they don't have to do it on a daily basis. They do it weekly because they're in those vehicles every single day. But they do log whenever they fuel up, and they're signed. They bring receipts. We have had an issue in our last audit where one individual lost a receipt. One out of however many, I'm okay with that, you know, it's bound to happen. But we have pretty tight procedure on that,
Good.
and we ask that
Okay.
all receipts are turned in, so we don't have, well, I haven't seen issues.
And then my other question is petty cash. There's on page 35, there's a petty cash request. And I know it's really minimal.
Sir.
Are you satisfied that that's well controlled too?
Yes, sir.
And what I see are not big dollar amount kind of things, but again, that's an area that could be fraught with problems.
Yeah, and for those individuals have to turn in their receipts. There's a form that's signed. That form is reviewed by myself.
Does it follow the normal procurement process? Like a division manager who has budget responsibilities has to sign it before you walk into the person who has petty cash?
Definitely.
Okay. Because it looked like that was happening, and that's a good thing. Okay. And there were 3 funds that are listed in here that I didn't recognize. What is Fund 777, 777, 998, and 999? What are those funds?
777 is payroll, 998 is cash for the general fund, and 999 is cash for the enterprise.
Cash for the what?
Enterprise?
Okay.
And you probably reconcile all those, that's why you know them by heart so fast.
Actually,
Or is it
actually,
Eleanor?
our two accountants do the reconciliations, yeah.
Can
Okay,
you know them that fast?
Yeah.
okay.
Okay. In another note, we did have retreat, council retreat, mayor and council retreat, and one of the items on the agenda I asked to put on there, see if at that retreat or in our organizational meeting, if we could change council meetings to the third and fourth Wednesday of the month versus the second and third, to allow staff enough time to reconcile and come up with the budgets and so forth. And at the same time, they will bring all the information to us, approved before it goes to mayor and council. And it didn't pass. We're still in the third and fourth. But I did explain to the mayor that we will not be having everything that needs to be approved going before the finance committee. Some things will come back to us and we've already approved them over there. Because he's the one that requested it. He said he could change his mind, so I'll leave it at that. That's where it stands. Any other questions on anything? We'll close out.
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead.
May I?
Yeah, go
And
ahead.
I thank the committee here for indulging me. How many bank accounts does the city have?
16 the last time I counted.
What?
16
16?
the last time I counted.
I know, I thought maybe it took all month to reconcile.
Okay, maybe the question should be with how many institutions? Is that what your question would be? How many institutions or how many accounts?
No count.
No?
Oh, I'd like to know how many institutions. I'm
Yeah.
thinking it's three, at least three.
Yes.
Three institutions. And they are Southwest Capital, Wells Fargo, and what's the other one?
Community First.
Oh, Community First, okay. And my question would be, you don't have to answer it now because I know we're running along. Why 16 bank accounts? And then my other last general question is, how many cell phones does the city issue to employees?
That I do not know, but I can definitely get that answer.
Because if you notice, they pay like the individual.
I saw they give
that?
$50
Yeah. I saw
to
that, yeah.
individuals
On a monthly
That-
basis.
on a monthly basis. yeah.
Stipend, correct?
That is a
Yeah.
stipend if you use your own personal phone.
So does that sound right
Is
to
it
people?
incorporated in their check?
$50 a month?
It's separate, huh? 'Cause that's-
But then how many, I would wonder how many the city owns that they issue to employees
I
for
don't
the
have that
duration.
number. We just changed services. I can get the figure.
I would be interested in that.
I could take a guess.
Yeah.
60.
60?
60.
What? That's high.
Plus stipends?
Plus stipends.
No,
No, that wouldn't be
it's
the-
either or.
Yeah.
It's either or.
No, but you're paying that many stipends plus 60 people have phones.
No, I'm saying you probably have 60 people with cell phones.
That the city.
This would be for
But the
people who
city-
need phones for their work with the city. You don't give 260 people a stipend because they got a cell phone and say, oh, you might need to call me at home. We don't do that,
No,
right?
it's for essential employees.
Yeah, it's for essential
Yeah.
employees,
It's for
yeah.
essential employees. And out of, how many did we say we had?
60.
252.
Yeah, we probably have 60
Yeah.
that receive a stipend or receive the phone.
Oh, okay, so they're both, okay.
But you can check, double check.
Yeah.
That's a long shot
Yeah.
deal for me, so,
So they either get a stipend or they have a phone.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so most people like me don't want to carry two phones, so I'd rather get a stipend. But we don't, Mayor and Council don't get one, so we use our own.
Good for you. I don't have
Excuse me, Mr. Counselor, but good.
it. Yeah. Kudos to
Sorry.
you.
That's it, go ahead.
No,
But you don't.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Answer
well,
that you
I'm
don't get a
not.
stipend.
I mean, I'm not, I mean, that's,
Maybe
you know,
they're not. My phone's my phone.
3/4 of this phone is all city business.
I know.
You know, it's like,
And it's yours.
well, it's my phone. Correct.
Same here. Same here.
Me too.
But we don't get no stipend or no.
Once I retire, I'm changing the phone number.
Yeah, me
Because that's
too.
your personal phone,
Yeah,
then
by
I
the
take
way.
it, right?
I'm changing the
But
phone
of course, we
number.
didn't get a 27% increase in pay either, so.
Aye.
But nobody's upset.
That's better than half the jobs in town.
We're just in the wrong business.
And the county is getting all the drug money too. So there's where we're getting that. That's where we're getting those good salaries.
Next time you have to run for that one.
Alan, first item on the next agenda, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Well,
Where's
that's
the
the same
county drug
thing,
money?
that's the same thing with all this funding for the fire. Basically, it's in the county fire.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And it's, I mean, we pay half the salary for the OME, Office of Emergency Management.
Yeah.
But,
And they're the ones that are gonna get all the money. Do they have a finance person yet? You know what I mean? Because they could be saying, no, not yet, not yet. And all the money's just trickling in and trickling in. Okay, we're being recorded, I better hush.
Anyone else? Anything else, Mr. Chavez?
Any movement on a permanent position for the
For finance?
finance director? Did we already do it?
No, sir.
No?
We haven't had any applicants.
It's being
I
advertised.
thought you applied, didn't you?
No, sir.
Oh, you did not? Oh, I thought you did.
He's been doing it for a
You
month. and
did
he's
so
like,
well.
Well, it could be a permanent interim.
How about Eleanor? Go cut it out, you guys.
Oh, we did get a new economic development director. though.
We did, oh, that's good.
And her
Who is
name
that?
is Amy,
Oh, I don't remember.
forgot her last name.
Weiser,
Huh?
Amy Weiser.
Weiser,
Why is it?
yeah, Weiser.
Don't know
Experience?
Amy.
She comes from Utah?
Utah.
Yes. And she's got a lot of experience.
Good.
Good.
I haven't met with her yet, but yeah, it'll be good.
Good, good.
Yeah, we're pretty confident that she's gonna do a good job for her. And she loves our community. So forth. Next meeting will be on schedule for July the 18th at 2 p.m. Same place, same time. Mr. Chavez, thank you. Eleanor, thank you very much.
Thank you, you did a good job. You guys are doing a good job.
You're doing great.
You answered everything,
Mr.
all the
Chairman?
questions we had.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I recommend we adjourn.
And do I have a second motion to that?
I'll second.
I'm gonna take that as a motion, not a recommendation.
No motion.
First, second, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, none. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
No problem. Time for work.
Right?
Meeting.
Let's
Bye, Eleanor.
work.
See you later.
Outside.